Podcast time. Let the topic shine. Podcast time. Welcome back to the show. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Need More Info, a podcast around the worlds of movies, video games, and TV shows for the festive season. Hello, everybody. Happy holidays, Hanukkah, Christmas time. You know, all those religious holidays out there. Or if you just, wanted to get drunk over Christmas or wherever you're celebrating, and come and join us to listen to the podcast as we go through the lovely topics we're going to be doing over the next few weeks. I am Nate, and I'm so glad to be back today. Yeah, tis the festive season, people, and it is going to be absolutely lovely out there today. To be honest, it's going to be absolutely lovely. But bringing that jingle cheer, I'm joined by my two lovely co-hosts today, Chaz and Fergus. How are you guys doing?
I'm good, man. That was a lovely intro, I must say. Very, very festive. Yeah, been good. Surprisingly, a lot of games have come out recently that I'm actually interested in. So I've been playing Darktide, the Warhammer 40k game. So that's been good. And Dwarf Fortress actually finally released on Steam. So I need to check that out at some point and figure out if I can actually play it now that it has an interface.
About this Dwarf Fortress, I saw the review go out today, so because I saw another game called Dwarf. It's sort of like a top-down dwarven like mining like tower defense game, and I thought, is this they changed the name? But it's probably different. It's a completely different game, no doubt. But I definitely saw that, and yeah, what was the other game you mentioned again? Because
Darktide.
Yes,
The Warhammer 40k game. Yeah.
Yeah, so I've got a lot of people wanting me to play at the moment, and the fact it's on Game Pass is just even sweeter. So, like, I'm loving that fact.
Yeah, I bought it for like 35 quid, and then the day after they announced it for Game Pass, I was like, come on, really? But it's good. It's a good game. I'm fine that I spent the money on it. I'm having fun.
I mean, giving your money to the Imperium, as it were, that's the best way to be, isn't it? But no, it's great, man. Fergus, how about yourself, man?
Been a couple of days since our last episode, but
That is true, to be honest.
I have played a bit more Chaos Head Noah, the visual novel from the Steinsgate people, and it is getting seriously weird.
You do love your visual novels, don't you, my man?
Yeah, I am considering making one in my spare time in the not too distant future, but they keep blindsiding me with mechanics and story things, so I think I kind of need to do a bit more research.
The mechanics indeed. No, but yeah, no, obviously, myself and Fergus, we recently did the Wednesday review, and quite a high scoring episode, actually. We gave it an 8.5 out of 10. It was a 8 and a 9 for myself and Fergus, so it was really good, and hopefully people are enjoying it out there. It's a brilliant show, and I'm surprised it hasn't been announced for a season 2 yet. That's really shocking to me, to be honest. Like, it's been out for a few weeks now.
Yeah, I think they might wait for a Halloween reveal. I don't know if they're going to want to rush it.
Halloween reveal, that's next year. Like, surely they usually announce it a few weeks after the first season comes out.
I mean, I've not heard anything about continuation of filming or anything, so maybe this success has surprised the studio. I don't know. Normally you would hear, they filmed like 3 series in a row, but I've not heard anything at all.
That is true, to be honest, that is true. But no, myself, I've been playing a bit more of the Callisto Protocol. It's a really weird game, to be honest. Like, it feels like someone else described it as a 13-year-old game in 2022. Like, its mechanics are very not to what up to date systems are. And like the dodge mechanic in the game is still fucking frustrates me. I'm probably gonna like talk about in a later episode, like, mechanics in games that frustrate you. I think that's a good topic, actually, to be honest. And this is definitely one of them. At the moment, I give it like a 6.5 out of 10. To be honest, it's not that great in my opinion. And there's other topics in regards to conversation from the developers. I'm not going to get into that now, but yeah, it's very interesting, to be honest. I've also been playing a bit more on Marvel's Midnight Suns. I'm enjoying it. Like, it's I'm actually liking the card-based combat mechanics in it. Like, XCOM with card-based combat. It's very interesting, but the dialogue is like, again, someone else described it as like it's an AI program wrote it. Like, it's very wooden, and it doesn't have, like, I'm not asking for like, Marvel movies like, Robert Downey Jr. style dialogue, but Marvel Spider-Man, even Avengers, like the Marvel's Avengers game, though it wasn't great, still had decent dialogue, and I just think it needed another pass. I'm wondering if people might mod that in the future. Outside of that, I think I mentioned last time I watched Black Adam. I think we might do a review on that in the future, but let's just say I'm very tepid about it, and I think that shows in the news that's actually been going out at the moment. Might do a bit of brief news talk before we get into the main topic today. So, have you guys heard that James Gunn might be scrapping the entire Snyderverse, like Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Superman, like clean house?
So what would replace it? Surely DC wouldn't just stop making stuff.
So basically, the idea is that James Gunn has come in with someone else, Peter Safran, and they're putting a plan to supposedly to David Zaslav next week, who's in charge of Warner Brothers, and they've got this 8 to 10 year plan in place that's going to be interconnecting the TV shows and films and video and in video games, even supposedly from the sounds of it, and animation. So it's an interesting concept, but I'm intrigued because he did Peacemaker, which is part of the Snyderverse, as it were. Like, these characters have offshot from the Snyderverse, Amanda Waller and everything. How's that going to play into it? And also, didn't Henry Cavill just leave The Witcher to become Superman again? So it's like, hi, and it's like that Grandpa Simpson gif of him just walking in with his hat and walking back out again, and that would be devastating for him.
To be fair, I'm sure we have had reboots of series where they recast the same actors. The new Suicide Squad, right? That's a good example.
See, that's what that is what I'm hoping for, to be honest, because I've read some today. I don't know if it's like a rumor or something, but like the director of The Flash, obviously that's a whole conversation itself, has basically said he might want to create a new Superman movie in the style of the old Richard Donner style movies, like more lighthearted, more more feely, with the John Williams theme and everything, and that'd be really interesting. But I'm half and half about this because, again, Superman, like, whole conversation does need to be like, hopeful, not dark and everything. But I've liked the actors that they've had because, I love Jason Momoa as Aquaman, Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman. Are they going to replace Shazam? Zachary Levi? And that's one of the best things to come out of DC recently.
Personally, I find sort of recasting the same actors if you're rebooting a franchise quite soon very confusing. I failed to understand that Suicide Squad and the Suicide Squad were not the same. Were not sequels.
I mean, it wasn't because obviously, like, you had Rick Flag and Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn, and you had a few other Amanda Waller in it again. So it felt like a sort of like a soft reboot sequel type thing. It wasn't like an actual reboot to a degree.
It was very strange. It was
way better.
It was good, but I got halfway through the film and was hit by a wave of confusion.
I can understand that, to be honest. And I don't know, just it's going to be very interesting going forward, especially the fact that, like, I trust James Gunn. I genuinely do, because most things that he's ever created have been great, even to his indie stuff, like Super and all the and what was the. It doesn't matter. Anyway, he's done a lot of indie projects where he's also recently done the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special, which was a fun 35-40-minute thing. It was just really fun, to be honest.
I actually want to check that out. That slightly relates to the topic that we've got in hand, but that might be something that I check out, because every year I do try and find little Christmas specials to watch, and that one I was like, I could watch it now, but I might save it. Seems interesting.
Well, I think, Chaz, that's a nice little segue in what we're going to be talking about today, to be honest. Yeah, thank you very much, Chaz. So I think it might actually be good to do an episode, like, if James Gunn comes out and reveals this plan to, Zaslav, and it's revealed to the world, I'd actually like to get into an episode of discussing what could happen and how this could actually have ramifications going forward and what they could do. I think that'd be a great topic to do in the future. But yes, people, today we are going, it is the festive season, and you get a lot of podcasts talking about their favorite TV shows, favorite video games, favorite, films. We've done that. And you get, like, what is the favorite Christmas movie? Obviously, one film always comes up in that regard, and it's the heated debate. I mean, yeah, to be fair, we have discussed this. Chaz's favorite Christmas film is Dread now. Again, as we've confirmed, he is in red and black as well, and it is festive colors. But no, we're going to be talking about comfort TV shows and video games and films, because sometimes during the Christmas season you like to go back to films and TV shows that you've watched before. No, there's nothing like watching an Indiana Jones movie over Christmas, or like Flight of the Navigator. Like, these movies you wouldn't usually watch, but when you see them, you're like, it brings a bit of comfort, because you kind of need that during the darker times. Not I'm talking like light, but maybe if you feel a bit down, you want a bit something to help you feel comfortable. And know everything in video games as well. Sometimes you don't want to play those sprawling 60-hour epics, which I'm not gonna lie, that's always me. But you might find those games that you just want to like go engross. Maybe a bit of World of Warcraft. Just to escape with, and Chaz is definitely approving of that, to be honest. And
It doesn't need to be Christmas for me to play WoW, but yeah.
But no, today, people, we are going to be talking about comfort TV shows. So basically, the idea is that we're not going to do a top list. We're not going to do a favorite list. We're just going to go through and talk about some of our favorite, like, or not, some TV shows that we really just enjoy, maybe like rewatching again and again, or also maybe shows that are coming up that we haven't watched yet that we're quite intrigued in actually looking into. Myself, I've got a couple in my list as well that I'm actually looking into. We're not going to go on for too long. We might do like go above 5 each, but we're not going to be talking about them like too much anyway. So I think it's time that we get into it. So Fergus, obviously it's become a tradition now that I sound off on this, but do you reckon it's time to get into the main topic?
Yes, the time is near. The holidays are close. It is time to spend time talking and watching comfy TV.
I thought you were going to make that rhyme for a second, then I'm not going to lie to you. It sounded like you were going into a sing-song, to be honest.
No, I've tried.
But no, let's make it a little bit of an alphabetical today. So, Chaz, why don't you take it first, man?
Which one do I pick? Let's go for this one. Oh, no. I'll do a quick round of honorable mentions very quickly. So first one for me is Schitt's Creek. At the beginning of the year, I was off. I was off after a surgery, and so I had a lot of time on my hands, and I was on a lot of painkillers. So I couldn't do a lot. So I just watched basically the entirety of Schitt's Creek. It goes.
We may be coming back to that in a bit, to be honest. Yeah.
I will not talk much, but basically it goes from quite it's seemingly an unlikable cast of characters, and then turns incredibly wholesome later on. So yeah, that was good. That comforted me during recovery. Next one is Friends. During COVID, my partner and I basically watched the entirety of it. I think it's just an easy watch type thing. It's not my favorite, but it's just easy to stick on. You can kind of go in whenever you want. Everyone knows the characters. It's an easy watch. It's comforting. It's familiar. So yeah, those are my two honorable mentions.
Friends is always good to go back to be honest. Like you've always got to pivot to the good shows. So I had to throw that Friends.
That's all good. It's all good. People wouldn't probably disagree with that one unless they hate it. It's just it's not no one's favorite. Well, it's not a lot of people's favorite, but it's easy to watch. So we'll get into my actual list. Although I must admit, this is going to be half slightly obscure British TV shows that Nate's probably not watched, and half.
For God's sake, you always put me into it like on this. Like I've seen an episode of Spaced now. I've seen one episode of Spaced. I can confirm that. Like,
oh, good. No, watch all of it. There's like 12
I will. I didn't really realize that show came out in 1996 as well. I didn't realize it was that old. Like,
it is. It's good though. It's real good. But yeah, so half that and half the actual comfort show, really. So let's start with one of those, and that is Robot Wars. I don't know whenever I talk about Robot Wars, but I grew up with this show. Just for a bit of background, it's a robot combat competition that was broadcast on British television from 1998 to 2008. It's I don't know, it's a bit of a time capsule. It's just really fun, light-hearted robot battling. They're a little bit cheap. It's hosted by Craig Charles, who is one of the main characters in Red Dwarf, which I also love. Fergus, were you going to say something?
I've got a friend who actually entered Robot Wars. I don't think they made it very far, but they were on TV for like an episode.
Oh, that's awesome. You'll have to find out what their robot was. I've probably heard of it. But yeah, probably last year, I went and rewatched a whole bunch of it, and it's just, I don't know, it's an old show. It's familiar to me. It's it's just comforting. It's fun. So that's one of mine. Fergus, would you like to go with your first pick?
Yes, no, I absolutely agree with Robot Wars. It was always on around winter time, and very entertaining. Shards of metal going absolutely everywhere. Hypno Disc and Razor with the top.
Yeah,
my top robots there.
I forgot to mention that every now and then a ridiculously powerful robot would just come and shred the other one, and that was always entertaining too. So yeah.
Power of design. My first very comfy TV show is The Simpsons. I've not really.
Oh, of
forgot
course,
to-
yeah.
of course. I mean, we've got really comfy Christmas episodes like Mr. Plow. I'm assuming everyone is at least vaguely aware of The Simpsons.
What's that?
The
I'm joking,
Simpsons.
I'm joking.
You could have missed it somehow.
Fucking you fucking win there, Chaz. To be honest, that was good. To be honest, so well done.
I mean,
My
growing
mum
up,
didn't like it. I didn't watch a lot of it, but I know of it.
I was growing up in the 90s. It was impossible to avoid, so it became kind of ubiquitous. You can watch old episodes at random. I don't think I'm particularly up to date with the new episodes, to be honest. I've tried to catch up as best I can, but I think I'm only as far as series 30, which is saying something. It's now 34 seasons and 738 episodes. So you could literally watch it forever on loop, on shuffle, and not really get bored of it. So they had to have quite a lot of Christmas and snow themed episodes, Mr. Plow being a famous one. But they also, Marge managed to end up on Channel 4's alternative Christmas message in 2004, after Channel 4 got the rights to The Simpsons, which again was just happened to be a very memorable year for me, I guess. But yeah, it's a show you can watch infinitely, always be caught off guard because there are so many episodes. It's familiar, it's the same people, they're doing the same sort of things. It's the very definition of a comfy TV show to be watched at Christmas, in my opinion. Nate, what have you got for us?
So I'm gonna, take a page out of Chaz's book here. So I'm going to talk about a few honorable mentions quickly, very briefly. So a couple TV shows I really love going back to, shows called White Collar and Leverage, or Leverage, or however you want to pronounce it. So White Collar is based about a guy who is a white collar criminal. He does like forgeries and like on everything. Initially, he's been put in prison. He breaks out, tries to get back to his girlfriend. She's left. There's a whole mystery of like where she's gone. But then basically, to keep him out of prison, the FBI has allowed him to work with him in the FBI white collar department to solve crimes. So there's this whole, underlying story going through the show. Where's his girlfriend? What's going on? It's a really great show. It's on Netflix. It had an ending. We actually, might be doing an episode in the future, like shows that ended too soon, what we would have done differently. Basically, what happened with this show was they decided to give it 6 episodes for a final season to wrap it up, which I thought was a really smart decision because it was a really good ending. I love that show, to be honest. It's Matt Bomer, Tim DeKay. It's a really, really good show. Next one I want to talk about briefly is also Leverage. Think modern day Robin Hood. It's essentially a group of criminals who are, there are grifters, thief, hackers, retrieval specialists, like fighters, and also like investigators who work together to solve, basically people have something stolen, so they decide to come up with like tricks and things to go up against these really rich people to get the money back or get payback against them. They've got a sequel series now called Redemption on Amazon Prime, so you can watch it there on Freevee. And it's just a really great show. It's a really good show to go back and watch, and I love the whole Robin Hood aspect of it, to be honest. Going next is a show called C. This is a show I've not seen yet. Obviously, I'm only there. It's about in the early 21st century, everyone loses their sight because of a virus. It stars Jason Momoa and Dave Bautista in the later seasons. But I believe his children can actually see after so many centuries. So there's this whole thing going on. It's on Apple TV. It's just it's a very intriguing concept, and it only has 3 seasons and it's done.
Yeah, I actually have heard of this one. It's kind of a little bit on my list, a little low down, but I definitely do want to check it out because, as you said, it's just one of those shows with a intriguing concept, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, no, and and it's only 3 seasons long as well. So that's just really good as well, to be honest.
Yeah, that's definitely a benefit for me because my attention span. So yeah, might have to bump that up the list a little bit.
I mean, Ted Lasso's the same. Ted Lasso's only going to be 3 seasons, and I thought at first, oh yeah, it's football, I'm not going to like it. But like then it's just such a really heartwarming show, and it's only 10 episodes a season as well, so it's like really fun. I highly recommend it. Yeah, I highly recommend that. Also, I will forever recommend For All Mankind. It's on Apple TV as well. It's basically what happened if Russia landed on the moon first, and it takes the concept of how the Cold War turned into the Space War and how technology advanced much quicker. How in the third season, the landing on the moon in the 90s. Like technology is like today's standard of technology are probably a bit further, but in the 90s, and how like female and black female astronauts in the 60s are pulled in. It's a very intriguing concept. It works really well.
I have to say, they sound like interesting shows, but from your descriptions, they don't sound like what I would jump to in terms of comfort shows. So what is it about them that you find comforting or soothing or?
So I think with Ted Lasso, I think because it has such a heartwarming element to it. Like basically, it's about this guy who comes over from American football. He's leading this football team in that's like first division. It's not doing well. But he has this goal inside. He wants to get them up to a good position. The person in charge of the football club though is trying to sell the thing and sell the team behind his back. So it's this whole competing element to it. It's actually the woman who owns the football club is the woman who said shame in Game of Thrones, the shame bell woman, Hannah Wellingham, I believe her name is.
That's a very random connection.
Yeah, but she's absolutely hilarious in the show. She's brilliant. It's just like has a really good heartwarming element to it. Jason Sudeikis is brilliant in it. For All Mankind, it's interesting because each season takes place over a decade. So basically, and Rick Flag in the Suicide Squad films. In the recent, he plays the main like military leader in the recent Suicide Squad movies. You might remember him. He leads the Suicide Squad. Anyway, he plays the main character in the show, and you pretty much follow his character as the main person throughout the seasons. And I've recently finished watching it, and I don't know, it's just because I think the third season's finished now. It's just something really nice to just put in the background. Like they're good hour and 10-minute episodes as well, so you don't have to watch binge it and everything. But it's just a good nice watch a day, and like something just completely different, to be honest. Really different. My final one is Mythic Quest. It's I think it's just very funny, to be honest. It's created by Charlie Day and Rob McElhenney from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. It's basically about a game development company who created this MMO called Raven's Banquet. Called Mythic Quest, MMORPG. And then they're working on a sequel called expansion pack called Raven's Banquet. But they worked with Ubisoft to develop this game. So actually, try and make it was actually understandable. It's good cash. Ashley Birch, who plays Aloy in Horizon Forbidden West, is a QA tester in it as well, which is quite funny. Danny Puddy, who I'm going to talk about later, who plays Abed in Community, is in it as well. He's the marketing guy, but he's not a very nice person in the show, to be honest. And it's just, and they're only like half an hour episodes. It's just really funny shows to watch. It's different. You don't see shows about game development before. And also, there's a bottle episode set in the 80s about the rise and fall of a games company, which I think is really fun. And it's just really fun. But those are my honorable mentions. I didn't mean to go on for a ramble for that long, but good collection. So we might as well just start with the one I was just talking about, really. But Community. I think Community's up there with one of the shows. It's very interesting because, like a lot of shows, it had its moment where it dipped a bit, then it went better, and then it sort of flatlined a bit near the end. And it's not gonna lie, Dan Harmon has said that, like, I believe he has said that when Donald Glover left the show, that the show kind of wasn't the same what it used to be, which I could kind of see. You can feel his missed presence, and obviously Yvette Nicole Brown as well when they left the show. Interestingly, when Chevy Chase wasn't around as much anymore, I was okay with that, to be honest. But not because of his his actions and everything, but because of just I felt that he was very stilted in a character in his portrayal and everything.
It's quite a negative character. I know they kind of tried to steer him away from that direction, but it never quite pulled it off, I think, to make like a likable, unlikable character in a way.
Yeah, he never really fitted in with the group, I guess. The group mechanic.
I mean, I like the fact how he did when something was going down really bad. He did really helping Britta out sometimes, and Annie and everything, and it was just nice to see those like sides of him. But yeah, I just think it's a really, really great show. Excellent intro song as always. But I've got a very close friend of mine. Me and him have basically stolen the Abed Troy handshake for ourselves every time we see each other. And I don't know, there's just something about the show where it's only like 6 seasons long. I didn't even realize the composer is the person who did The Mandalorian and the Black Panther, so that's very interesting. And this is where Anthony Russo and Joe Russo for the Avengers came from as well. So it's just like, seeing all these interconnecting webs, and obviously Dan Harmon did Rick and Morty, and all this great talent in the show brought such a great spark to it. And it's just always good. It's always on Netflix. I usually have it on the background at some point, probably not to the degree of another show I'm going to talk about later, but I definitely give it a go, because the start of the show isn't as wild and wacky as it gets into after the first season. They basically introduced like paintball into the season. As soon as that hits, you're like, oh no, this show's going somewhere else now, to be honest.
Yeah, no, there are some really standout classic episodes of Community. I think my favourite is where they introduce the prisoners on iPads and they sort of start roaming around on Segway.
When he tries to kill him by pushing him downstairs. Yeah.
Even to this day. Just great stuff. Really great stuff.
Yeah, it's an awesome pick, man. It's definitely one of the ones I thought about. It's it obviously covers a lot of stuff, but it's quite relentlessly positive through most of it. And as you said, it has a lot of really cool special episodes as well. So yeah, great pick. I'll go on to my next one, which is maybe of a similar tone, and that is Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt.
Yes. Praise be.
Yeah, so it's a show by Tina Fey, who also did 30 Rock, which is not a bad show as well. But yeah, I've rewatched this a few times just because, again, quite relentlessly positive. The sense of humor is my kind of sense of humor. It's like kind of silly and out there, and I just really enjoy it. And you don't have to, although it has an overarching story, you don't have to pay too close attention to it. And it's an easy watch. It's really easy to rewatch, and the characters are good. It's a fun, comforting show for me.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I still need to watch the choose your own narrative movie as well. I heard that was quite good, to be honest.
Yeah, I want to check that out too, because I enjoyed, well, very different show, but I enjoyed Bandersnatch. The technology that they make that work. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see what else they've done. And to my knowledge, they never really used that again on Netflix.
I
Maybe
mean,
they have.
yeah, I know Daniel Radcliffe is supposed to be in the Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt movie as well, which is very interesting. But like, I think this show might come up later. But obviously, Ellie Kemper, she comes from The Office. That's what I know her from originally. That show might be mentioned a bit later. But it's really great to see her go. It was interesting because like her personality sort of shifted into Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, and it's sort of like it's a similar personality degree. So it's sort of like easily transitioned over.
Yeah, it is in some ways it's quite a similar character, but obviously given more of a spotlight. And yeah, I think it's hard to make such relentlessly positive characters work, but I don't know why she just fits into the show, maybe because the whole thing is quite upbeat. But yeah, I really enjoy it. So yeah, that's my next pick.
I mean, she is unbreakable. That's what it is. And I just love Titus Andromedon. He's just like,
oh yeah,
he's just fabulous, like absolutely fabulous. Like he's so good.
And his relationship with Mikey's really sweet too. So yeah. Oh, and you also mentioned great opening themes. Unbreakable has a fantastic.
Oh yeah, brilliant theme. And I love John Hamm in the show as well. Like I think he's like I didn't realize how funny he could be in such a weird role in that show, but like obviously he's the Reverend.
Oh god, yeah, DJ Slizzard.
Yeah, that's something, to be honest. But yes.
Cool. All right. Well, enough from me, Fergus. What is your next pick?
Next up, we have Mock the Week. So for those of you who don't know, this is a British comedy panel TV show presented by Dara O'Brien. You would have seen him on some various science shows, starring people like Hugh Dennis, Sandy Parsons, Rory Bremner, Frankie Boyle, etc. Is again one of these shows that's kind of always been on while I've been growing up, so it has been pretty much consistently on air since 2005. Has actually recently been cancelled.
Boo.
I know it will no longer be airing. The official line was that the news has got so silly it has become impossible to satirize. So they can't out-comedy the news. If you've followed the news in the past few years, you might understand. But very sadly, it is gone probably too soon. Similar shows to it, like Have I Got News for You, are still continuing. But Mock the Week is no more, which is very sad because, again, it was a very consistent part of my. I mean, it never went. There was a Christmas special, and it kind of the series kind of ended just before Christmas, and the new series started just after Christmas. So it was all very, I don't know. I get kind of like comfy holiday vibes from it. Again, it's one of these things that's like 250 odd episodes. So you can, you can kind of play it on shuffle. I mean, as long as you have an encyclopedic knowledge of the news since 2005, you can. But
I have to say, some comfort shows for me, not necessarily ones I'm mentioning, but comfort shows for me are ones that I can watch when I go home to my parents because they still have regular TV. So stuff that I can fairly easily watch there. It's kind of like going home, and that's like a comfort vibe to me. And Mock the Week is always on. So yeah, that's a good pick for me because of that reason. And it's a good entertaining thing. It's consistent. You're always going to get a good laugh out of it.
Yeah, same. It was very sad to see it go, but
had a good run though. To be
yeah,
fair.
no, absolutely. It's been on for ages, but yes, I would say watch it. It is no longer there. But what have you got for us next, Nate?
So I'm going to stay in the comedy realm now. This is a show I've loved for many years now, and the show came out in like 2006, so it is quite a relatively older comedy show, but I give it an early rewatch this year. It is a show called Psych. This is a show about a guy who has an eidetic memory, but and his father is a police officer, but he becomes a slacker. But he's so attuned to like his environment because basically when he was a boy, his father made him like learn to detect things to a high degree. He gets in the first episode, he basically puts this thing forward where someone gets caught. The problem is though is that they think he might be a suspect, so he decides to pretend to be psychic. And it basically goes on from there where basically when he has visions, he like gets like very animated. Like he does like all these dance sequences. He grabs his friend's bald head, he calls him Magic Head. Like, it's like a really great show. But that's an interesting concept, it's fun and everything like to go through. But as the show went on, they started adding serial killers like into the show. Like basically like, yin and yang. Basically this whole like subplot narrative that went into it. Obviously there's the romantic element to the show as well. There's obviously the police officer that won't he find out if he is a psychic or not. He has his best friend in the show, Gus. So it's basically like about Sean Spencer and Gus Burton Gus Guster. And I love the fact that in the show Gus's opening line to any woman he sees is, "Yo, you heard about Pluto? It's messed up, right?" Every time he meets a woman, that's his opening line to her. It's just so funny, to be honest. It's just such a good show. And also, it did so well that basically when the show finished in 2014, they decided to do 3 movies. Like they consistently put movies out. The last movie came out last November. They had Psych Lassie Come Home, and Psych This Is Gus. Obviously take a piss out This Is Us. I love the show as well because it had a very close-knit group of characters, but also one of the characters on the show, Carlton Lasseter, played by Timothy Omundson, he had a massive stroke after the show, like a massive stroke. And he had this, I remember in an interview, he basically used to say that he had this ability to understand lines instantly. Like he could remember he could never forget his lines. Since he had a stroke, that went away. He had his stroke 1 week before filming the first movie. So what they did was they decided we're going to write it into the show that he was ill, into the movie that he was ill. So he had a very small cameo in the first movie. And in the second movie, he gets shot at the beginning and he has a massive stroke after he's shot. So they write into the script that he had a stroke in the movie. So it allows him to have this entire narrative in the film, but it allows it to be a major part of it. And I think that's a really heartwarming thing, the fact that, sometimes, you get these creatives, if someone has a medical emergency or stuff like that, they just recast the character or they just don't bring them back. But they decided with the show that to just bring it back. And I just think it's a really, really fun show. It's on, I But you could get the seasons on. Unfortunately, it's on Peacock mainly, but you could buy the seasons if you want on Google Play. They're always like going. You could get the entire show for like 30 quid sometimes. It's very cheap. It went on for like how many episodes? How many episodes did it have? It had 120 episodes. It isn't like amazingly long, but you'll see like lots of people who will go on to be bigger actors as well in the show. And I just think it's just a really fun show to go back to. So that's my next pick. Chaz, let's take it to your next one, man.
All right, cool. This is probably my weirdest pick because not many people would think of this as a comfort show, but it very much is for me, and that is Hell's Kitchen. Nate's shaking his head.
I mean, you call Dread a Christmas movie, so this isn't too far off. There's all burning and everything.
I wouldn't watch it with my family at Christmas, but I'm thinking of more general comfort shows, and I don't know. Obviously, it's trash TV, but for me, there's something really compelling about watching Gordon Ramsay yell at Americans. I also like food shows, so that helps. And it's just, I don't know, it just skirts the line between absurd enough challenges and like ridiculous over the top drama to just be like, yeah, I can stick this on and rewatch this episode and laugh at the silly Americans. And sorry if you're American and listening. It's this show's framing, honestly. But yeah, I don't know. I don't watch a lot of trash TV or that kind of TV, but that is my trash TV. Don't know why. I couldn't exactly say why it's compelling, but it's easy watch. It comforts me. There you go. Don't know what you guys have to say about that one.
I mean, I've obviously, we know Hell's Kitchen because of Gordon Ramsay, and like obviously became famous from that. And I've never actually watched the show myself. I've just seen either the mockery that came from it, or like, I love the fact that in recent years he's become like a bit like Simon Cowell. He's tamed himself a bit. Like he isn't as like angry. Maybe it's because he's older now. He probably can't to get angry as much anymore. But yeah, I never watched it myself, but it's a very, of course, trust you, Chaz, to make it add the what the hell comment there. Like it's quite
Honestly,
funny
man,
to be honest.
I've watched a lot of it. That's I was like, I know it's going to be controversial, but I have to include it. I've watched it so much. Also, the thing with Gordon Ramsay, right, is yes, he's known for his yelling, but in his British shows, he's not. He basically plays it up for the camera in the American shows. So I wouldn't say it's necessarily that he's getting older. I think it's just that it depends on the setting. The other thing is a bit later in the shows when he weeds out the people who are basically shit. He becomes a lot more reasonable in his critique as well. So that's kind of a interesting element too, because at the end of the day, he is a really good chef, and I like stuff about food. So yeah, well done there, Nate, for managing to figure out something to say about that pick.
I mean, it's like it's interesting because obviously, didn't Jamie Oliver have a show at one point as well? Like, and it's interesting because he was more like the good person, like persona, and Gordon Ramsay was like, "Fuck this shit, your food is shit." So it's like you could tell people prefer that kind of TV more at times.
Apparently
To be honest.
so, yeah. I don't know many nice chefs, TV chefs, but I'm probably wrong about that. Anyway, enough about that weirdness. Let's go on to Fergus.
So for my next pick, we have a favourite show of mine, or also about food, actually. Bob's Burgers. Food in a different sort of way. Animated adult cartoon American show about a family who run a burger joint in America somewhere. And there's a lot of interesting antics, and it's very much centered around the family. So like Christmas is a big thing in certain episodes, and it's quite wholesome, but also a bit crass in places because of some of the adventures that some of the kids get up to. We're now approaching again 250 odd episodes, so it's another one of these shows that you can sort of put on shuffle, and you can basically watch any episode at any time at random. It's got a similar sort of vibe to The Simpsons. I don't think it's quite as good as The Simpsons, but it's still, if you're into kind of like small American family drama type stuff, with comedy and food, it is definitely a must watch.
I've actually heard a lot of good things about Bob's Burgers. It's kind of on my list to watch as well because I heard it's quite wholesome, and a lot of American adult animated comedies, I find they're a bit too crass for me. But this one, maybe I think I would like.
Yes, no, there is definitely a whole sub branch of American adult animated show that is literally just farts. This is not one of them. And yeah, there's a movie out now.
Yeah. Didn't they get a release in UK cinemas? Or am I imagining?
Yes, I went to see it at the local cinema. There weren't many people in the cinema, but
Sounds like when I went to go watch Teen Titans Go, to be honest.
that might just be the cinemas. But it's 100% worth watching. The main voice actor is the same guy who does the voice acting for Archer. So there is in Archer a crossover episode where Archer briefly becomes Bob from Bob's Burgers because he has amnesia.
I think yes, I've seen the Archer episode of that. Yeah.
Yeah. Again, brilliant. There's quite a small pool of American adult animated voice actors, which I think is probably a conversation for another day. But you'll recognise quite a lot of the voices from the show because they've appeared in other similar things. Anything else you want to know about it?
I mean, like animation stuff. So I don't mind the animation stuff for Bob's Burgers. So I'm getting a little, I don't know, I'm getting a little frustrated with animated TV shows recently in the West. They're becoming to use the same sort of animation style for everything. There's a couple of shows I do want to watch called Gravity Falls, Infinity Train. Those shows, I've heard those are really good. I've also heard the show Centaur World and Owl House are really good as well, especially for LGBTQ representation. Owl House on Disney Plus, which is awesome. But Chaz just got to Google that right way. But basically, it's there's certain animated shows which work out quite well, but it feels that the West is becoming one animation style, a very simple animation style. They're just always using that now. It's not the Rick and Morty style, but it's more Inside Job, stuff like that. It's all becoming the same animation style. That's why I'm loving I know Rick and Morty does its own thing with the narrative, but Bob's Burgers I've heard is quite fun, to be honest. I have heard it's quite fun.
Yeah, it's considerably more palatable than quite a lot of the other offerings in the adult American animated space. I say there's some crass storylines, so I couldn't watch a certain episode with my parents. My parents don't like it very much, but in comparison, it's very nice.
Getting a lot of good recommendations yet again, as I always do when we talk about TV shows.
Yeah, try to just add that to the ever-growing list, as it were. No, it's interesting, with these sort of animated TV shows, because I've mentioned the shows before, Kipo and the Age of the Wonder Beast. It's a great specific show on Netflix about a girl who wakes up in the future, but there's mutants in the world and mutant people and hybrids and everything. It's really fun. And also She-Ra. I thought, oh yeah, no, what is She-Ra? Then I watched it and I was like, oh no, this is actually quite good, to be honest. It's it had its beginning and end, and animation's becoming an interesting field for narrative, to be honest, recently. And I feel that Bob's Burgers getting a movie still must show it's the fact that it's got its whole still got a massive pull, because I've heard about the show for years now. I've just never watched it myself.
Yeah, no, the Western animated scene is beginning to take off. It very much used to be, if you watched anything animated, it was definitely for children, 10, 15 years ago. Now that's very much not the case. In terms of budgets, I think it's easier to make animated shows in an environment where you can't go outdoors so much.
To say it was either that they're made for children or it showed on Adult Swim, and it was very much a similar kind of.
I mean, you have Invincible now as a good example. Invincible's a great example of Western adult animated content. That is some. Yeah, there's definitely fucking 18 rated adult content, to be honest.
But it's not adult content as in it's crass humor, which is
no,
cooler.
It's just fucking violent as shit.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind more content like that. Not necessarily ultra violent, just more it just sounds so stupid, but mature. I don't know.
No, I get that. I do get that, to be honest. A lot of properties are getting that more recently. Rings of Power is a very interesting topic for its narrative-based structures at the moment. That's another conversation for another time in regards to that. But I definitely agree with that, to be honest. That's awesome, man.
An illegal spy agency discovers the theft of a prototype weapon. Derek, codename Confused Llama, and his handler, Frank, codename Majestic Vole, investigate the theft. A naive man with fanciful notions, Derek sets out on his inept journey to reclaim the weapon from villainous hands, unaware of the hidden tale following him. Enter the world of Confused Llama, A Spy's Tale, a short comedic spy thriller available on Amazon in paperback or Kindle.
So my next pick is, I'm just going to have to talk about now because Chaz mentioned it earlier. It is Schitt's Creek. You know, it's definitely one of my go-to favorite comfort shows. I feel it's one of those shows where I can watch at least 2-3 times a year, and it doesn't ever get boring. Like, and the fact that, like, when I first heard of this show, I was like, what the fuck is this show? Schitt's Creek? Like, come on, this is like some stupid shit. Like, I thought it's got the guy from Scary Movie in, like, you know, it's Chris Elliott rolling shit in the show. Like, you know, I thought it's going to be stupid and everything. And obviously, it's got Eugene Levy. He's from American Pie. What can he do in this? And then when I watched the first episodes, I was like, okay, this is pretty good. And it got better and better. And then, as mentioned before, it basically starts off as the character you really don't like. Actually, to be fair, the dad is probably the most tolerable character in the show at the beginning, because you can tell he's come from a working class background, but he became rich, and then that's how it went. But then you come to really love the other characters, and the fact that, like, you know, it was created by, like, watching the show. First couple of episodes, I was like, why did his son? They made some excellent casting with his son, because his son looks really similar to Eugene Levy. Then I realized, oh shit, no, that's actually his son in real life. And the fact that they both created the show together, which is a great concept. And, you know, it's 80 episodes, 6 seasons on Netflix. You know, it's just so heartwarming, and, like, it's literally pretty much set in this, like, back town, back in the middle of America and everything.
I think that's part of the reason why it's quite comforting. I mean, obviously it's not familiar to us, but it probably is quite familiar to a lot of people, that sort of setting. Because yeah, it's like, you know, they integrate into a welcoming community, and they do like a complete 180 almost, from what they start out as and what the initial expectations are.
Yeah, no, definitely agree. And, like, you know, it's you have characters such as Patrick, who comes in the third season and everything. You know, I love the fact that Simply the Best, like, one, you know, it's a song that's come into, like, you know, such a modern way in recent years. And also I love the fact that Catherine O'Hara and Moira Rose is a massive icon in the LGBTQ community. Like, there's a documentary episode where basically, like, they'll have Moira Rose cosplay competitions, like who could be the best Moira Rose and everything. And I think that's absolutely brilliant. And how you know, the whole representation of these characters were, like, how, you know, David Rose's character, like, he is bi, you know, the predominant, you know, as the beginning of the show, and transition to a lovely, yeah, exactly, bisexual, yeah, sorry, yeah, sorry.
Pansexual.
Oh, so he's pansexual,
Yeah.
sorry, yes, he's pansexual. And because they do mention bi in the show, though, I believe correctly. I think that's probably where I picked up on it, maybe a little bit.
I think a couple of them are bi, but it's quite casually mentioned, which is again a really nice reason for the representation in there. They don't make.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's not one of those shows, because you do get TV shows where they do force representation, and, like, it's very dominant, to be honest. Whereas this show, it's very natural. Like, it's very nice. I think I'm fair to say some shows do force, like, try to force that on you, basically.
It's definitely a fine balance, I'd say, but I don't know. This one's so wholesome in its representation that it's just like, it's just a really nice couple, and they just happen to be the same gender. That's all.
Yeah, and it's really lovely, to be honest. I love how, you know, it deals with lovely storylines and the budding relationship between these two people, and it has, like, such a lovely happy ending to the show, and it does really it is really heartwarming when the show ends, to be honest. And also, you know, you gotta love a little bit of Alexis and everything like that. She is a terrible singer, Jesus Christ. But it's just such a great show, and I don't know, definitely watch it, people. Like, I believe I was the one that recommended it to you, Chaz, actually, to be honest.
Yeah, you might have done, actually. Yeah, I don't know what it was. I just randomly felt like checking it out. I think I went in expecting a comedy show, and it is funny. We are talking about wholesomeness, but it is a funny show as well. But yeah, I got quite a lot more out of it than I initially expected.
Yeah, and, you know, they're like 20-minute episodes as well, so they're not long at all. You could get through the show in a week, to be honest. And trust me, I've done it. So that you could, yeah, exactly, get through the show in a week. And I'd love to see a one-off movie to see what happens after the show, to be honest, like where they are now and everything. And because I think they'll be really interesting, because I won't spoil the ending, but it has a really, really satisfying ending, to be honest. And you don't get that in shows a lot, to be honest. And that's just what makes it a great show to always come back to, because sometimes you get shows that just end, and sometimes you get shows, it's going to have a happy ending, so you just like rewatching it.
Exactly.
So,
yeah. Great pick, man. Cool. All right. It's my pick again. Let's return slightly more to normality after Hell's Kitchen. My next pick is Only Fools and Horses. So this is something I watched a lot growing up. I think the reason that this is so comforting to me is it's very familiar. Both of my parents and my parents' families are Londoners, so the accents and the locations that they show in the show are very familiar. And the market that they go up, I've been to loads of markets like that growing up. So yeah, it's good. And although it deals with a lot of serious stuff, it's also really funny and just very classic British show. This is one that I would recommend to watch over Christmas. I believe they have got several Christmas specials, and I believe it's quite often on over Christmas as well on regular TV. But yeah, not much more to say about it. It's a classic for me. It's comforting. It's nostalgic. Good show.
Bill of Dale Boy for Christmas. So
Oh yeah.
I have never fully watched the show, to be honest. I have watched it, over Christmas. As you said, it is always on over Christmas. It's one of the staples of being on a Christmas, and I think the episode of them selling a certain item for the result and everything was just, I thought was, that's the episode I remember most from that show. I believe that was the end as well of that show, to be honest. I think that was the
near
sort of
the end.
Yeah, but no, it's a great thing, and I love the fact that one of the main actors from the show still realizes today how big he didn't realize how big the show was going to be, to where he is now and everything. And that's a great pick, man. To us, that's a really great pick.
Cheers, man. Yeah, I've actually been rewatching it a little bit recently. I got myself BritBox, which is maybe a lesser known streaming service, but I've been rewatching some classics. One to Blackadder now. Also went through Porridge. They were also tempted to pick for those, but yeah, they're good too. But yeah, I rewatched the episode where they went to Margate, and Margate's for those who don't know, a seaside holiday trip town, and it had all these old pier rides and things like that, and I'm looking at that because I used to go on holiday in places like that as well. So yeah, very definitely nostalgic for me. But yeah, that's my next pick. Let's go back to Fergus.
So we are back onto the anime. So most comfy anime. Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid.
I don't.
Have you heard of this one?
No, goddamn haven't.
Have you not? Oh,
no.
that's a shame.
Fergus, half the shit you said.
I know all about Miss Dragon's anime. Yeah, that one. Yep.
Yeah.
Magic. Yeah.
Cool. So, right. So this is from Kyoto Animation, was a manga beforehand. As the manga started in around about 2013, the show started airing around 2017. So this woman who works at as a software developer in Japan goes home drunk one day, misses her stop, ends up in the woods, only to find a dragon with a sword through her back. So she takes the sword out the dragon, saving the dragon. The dragon then owes her a life debt and decides to become her maid. A very interesting relationship ensues. And over the course of the next two series, they kind of build a family full of humanoid dragons who can sort of transform at will and do magic and stuff. So it's incredibly wholesome. Again, Christmas holiday episodes. It's just really about the relationships between the characters and building a family in unusual circumstances, to say the least. And as Kyoto Animation's got quite a good reputation for doing quite wholesome animes as well. There's a quite a big gap between the first series and the second series because someone decided to burn down the animation studio over a copyright claim. So that happened. It's quite famous in anime lore. But the show itself is the most wholesome thing imaginable. It'll almost certainly be at the top of your list on Crunchyroll. And if you enjoy slice of life with a bit of magic and fantasy and kind of relationship building and like just more dragons keep turning up and they keep joining the family and it's all like I don't know how to describe it. It's just really heartwarming. Yeah.
I love the idea of a wholesome dragon family. I've not heard of it, but that does sound super chill. Also, I don't think I've ever seen a Christmas episode in anime. Is that much of a thing? I'm just gonna sound really ignorant. I don't watch
Shonen
anime.
have them, I believe. Shonen, like I know My Hero Academia has Christmas episodes. I know that does.
Sometimes they'll wear a Santa hat, but Winter Festival and New Year kind of amounts to the same thing, but is the place they do a Winter Festival.
Good enough.
Yeah,
it's fair to be honest, man. Yeah, that's cool. So staying over to my one now. My next one is I'm gonna save the best one for last because I think you know what my last one's gonna be. We're now gonna talk about the old Parks and Recreation. It's a stunning show. I think this show is up there with some of the greatest in my opinion, like Friends, The Office. Like it's just one of those shows that it's just so good. Like, and also it gave us Ron Swanson, the legendary Ron Swanson. You know.
Yeah, no, this is an absolutely great show. I've literally watched the entire thing at least twice and still regularly watch YouTube clip compilations of things like Best of Ron Swanson. It's truly great, this show. Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually a really good pick, I think, as well, because it has got that small town like comfort vibe going on. I am surprised you picked it over Community though, because I don't know, I think I like Community a little better, but to be fair, we are talking about comfort shows, so yeah, maybe I can see why you did that actually.
Because also with the show like the cast is, I think the cast is stronger in my opinion than Community. Like, you know, you have and you have cast have gone on to do some amazing things. You know you have like Adam Scott, you know, Star-Lord himself started off in the show, which ironically they have a plot narrative within the show about how he went up to London to lose 60 pounds and how did he do it. He basically just stopped drinking beer and that's how he did it. You know, Aubrey Plaza, who's just skyrocketed to where she is now. Rashida Jones, Amy Poehler. Obviously, Amy Poehler was, you know, brilliant before this show was started, but you know, it just brought like so many people to the forefront and everything. And I just love how the show, like, again, it starts off very small, and it is like The Office. Yeah, it's talking to the camera style effect show and everything. It's not like, you know, a standard multicam show. It is a speak to the camera style show, which I really enjoy, and I think also it is like created by Michael Schur as well, so it is created by the Office creators. So it was obviously a natural hit, and I don't know, there's just something about Ron Swanson that just always gets into my heart. It's that mustache.
I said earlier as well with Kimmy Schmidt about you know, relentlessly positive main characters, and Leslie Knope's another example of a character that works in that way as well. She's just compelling to watch and fun.
I think you do hit the nail. She's not just positive, but she's driven and determined. Maybe to a detriment sometimes, which is hilarious to be honest. But also, I love the fact that this town is so against her as well. She's like, you know, like the fact it was classed as the 7th heaviest or the 6th heaviest city in the US, and how they like talk about like the big burger places and everything they have, where like the super sized cups or the regular sized cups, and like, you know, and how. I don't know. It's just how her fight against like the government, which I think is just great, but also she is a government employee in herself.
We haven't mentioned Chris Pratt.
I mean, this man has literally gone from a pit to you know leading the galaxy. That's literally his trajectory. To be fair, though, he was in the OC back in the day, like he was on that show back in the day. But this was like I think for more international audiences, the OC is probably more American. I never watched the OC growing up myself.
I watched a bit, but I couldn't tell you who Chris Pratt was. I would say Parks and Rec was definitely the Chris Pratt breakthrough to stardom.
I watched Guardians of the Galaxy first, so I became aware.
Oh wow! Okay,
and
that's
went back and watched Parks and Rec. I was like, oh, it's that guy.
I do love the fact though, even after Guardians of the Galaxy came out, he came back and finished the show. It wasn't like, sometimes actors come and they leave and everything. I love the fact that, but again, I love the fact in the show they tried to train him up and then he just goes off to London for 3 months and then he comes back all toned up. And I love that bear joke. It just gets me every time when I see it, to be honest. And obviously, Mouse Rat, we gotta love a bit of Mouse Rat and a little bye bye little Sebastian, and all these things in the show. And also the best line I think we all need to, for the Christmas period, people, you need to treat yourself. You need to have all these like comments and jokes and everything. And I think it's just like the relationship between the characters, how Nick Offerman's character, Ron Swanson, he's a libertarian. He is a libertarian. And basically he hates the government. He'll always help Nope, even though she's majorly part of the government. It's just a great connection between these characters. I think that's where it builds more on Community, in my opinion, because I feel people like Chevy Chase, like in Community, his narrative, his character was he had layers to it, but wasn't as deep as some of the characters in this show. Like even Aziz Ansari's character, he basically went through the show initially as a secondary character, but then he went on to do this whole business thing and show his smarts. And I don't know, it's just a great show in my opinion. That's why I had to put it up there.
Do you know this probably better than I do, but did it have Christmas specials? It must have had a few, right?
Yes, I believe it did. I believe it was more a case of like I believe they cropped up I don't think it was like a centric part of the show, but I do believe they did have Christmas specific episodes. And
that counts.
Yeah, exactly. And I just I also love how she starts off as this character, and by the end of the show, I won't spoil it for you, but it does. The final season was a bit, when I first watched it, I was a bit like, I don't know what I feel about the final season, but when I rewatched it again, I was like, oh no, this is really good. And also they do something at the end, which I think is very interesting, because I don't want to spoil it for people, because even though she's a bit old now, there's a basically Leslie Knope and her husband Ben at the time, they have certain positions in the government now, but you don't know who is who at the end, because it doesn't tell you who is who at the end, so it doesn't spoil, it doesn't basically put that aside. And
yeah, I agree about the final season of Parks and Rec. Like it feels like the characters changed somewhat subtly for them to be able to wrap it up, because the trajectory beforehand was kind of an infinite, let's just sort of keep going. So it felt a little bit off, maybe.
Yeah, I must admit I bounced off the last season. I will have to finish it off at some point just for the sake of completion. But yeah, I really enjoyed pretty much every season. Even the first one, people say that's a bit slow, but I like that one. But yeah, just bounced off the last one for some reason.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. But that's my last last pick. So how about you, Chaz?
All right, I'm going to be slightly cheeky because I've impromptu remembered something that I watched a lot of. Originally, I was going to talk about Red Dwarf, which
Of course you were. Yeah,
of course I was.
Yeah.
For the same reasons as a lot of shows I mentioned. It's British. It's something I watched growing up, comforting, etc., etc., etc. But I'm going to actually go for something else, which is Charlie Brooker's Screen Wipe. If you guys know that one.
I know Charlie Brooker from Black Mirror, but I've never heard of this at all.
Yeah, so this is how I know Charlie Brooker. Before he did Black Mirror, like you said, basically it's like a commentary show where it's kind of on the cheap side, but it's just Charlie Brooker using his insight as someone who's worked in TV to make comments on all sorts of types of programs, a lot of common British programs, but also some American shows. It's just got a good sense of humor. It's kind of cynical, but I don't know, it's just really easy to stick on in the background and watch. Plus, it kind of evolved because it's a bit of an old show now. It was around in like 2004, 2005 for a few years. And they evolved into, what's it called? Review of the year, basically. So it turned into one episode a year that he did, and he reviewed, basically, he wrapped up all the current events of the year. Right now, the form it's in is DEFTA 2020, DEFTA 2021. You might have seen those on Netflix. But those come out at the end of the year, so they're kind of like Christmas specials because you watch them around that time and you wrap up those. So yeah, that is my slightly random last pick.
Yeah, fair enough. I like Charlie Brooker. I'm not a huge fan of the Black Mirror. but Charlie Brooker himself. He married Connie Huck from
He
Blue
did.
Peter, which really got me. They seem completely different in terms of personalities.
Yeah, they actually made an episode during lockdown where they kind of like they kind of made fun of the fact that they were so restricted. He had like a cardboard stage, and like he would film a lot of it on his phone, and like showed his wife trying to take care of the kids and how she was like so mad at him for that and things. But yeah, it's a bit random that happened, but it's true. But yeah, I know what you mean about Black Mirror. A lot of people say that they don't like it, and I totally get that. But yeah, Scream Wipe,
Yeah,
totally different.
if you can give me Black Mirror episodes which are wholesome, which is to say that out loud is exactly like
San Junipero, 100% watch it.
okay, because I just again, like being told to watch the QA episode as the first episode of when I was feeling a bit down was the worst decision ever in my opinion. Like to be given, that was the worst. Like I've heard, like I know the 6th season is coming out soon, and I believe the budget's been amped up on that show. But also, I am intrigued by the site, the Star Trek parody, on Black Mirror, like in that episode. I've heard that's quite good, so I might have to check those out. And obviously, it's one of those shows where you don't have to watch, the episodes in order as well. They are like, out of order. But yeah, I might. What's the show called again? I might have to check this out.
Well, the original one is Charlie Brooker's Scream Wipe. Basically, it's like commentary on TV and films. It's quite interesting, and I binged the hell out of it a few years back, so I had to sneak that one in there.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, fair.
Also, I have to say, Black Mirror has probably the anti-Christmas episodes. I believe it's called White Christmas. Do not watch that on Christmas unless you are feeling like being very depressed.
So basically, I will never watch that show.
Yeah.
Except San Junipero, trust me. But yeah, that's my last pick.
Sure. So we're back to anime for me. Have you heard of a show called Laid Back Camp?
No, I haven't. No. I think it's got to a point now. Have you heard the show? No, we have. We're just going to have to create like a
These are just
audio
really
voice
big.
cue.
Yeah, these are really big shows in my world. Okay, so premise is girl called Rin, high school girl because anime, really enjoys camping on her own. Really specifically around winter. So it's a show about going out camping around Japan at winter. There's lots of how to make fires, how to avoid bears, and this sort of thing.
Actually, I think you have mentioned this show before because you have
before.
said how there's the main picture's a mountain, if I'm correct. Like one of the main pictures is a mountain, and how like you can actually go to these locations in Japan from the anime itself, if I'm correct.
Yeah, so they are all real campsites, quite often around Mount Fuji, because Japan loves Mount Fuji. But yeah, no, it's it also kind of gives you an awful lot of real life tips about how to survive in the wild during the winter. So how to collect your firewood and this sort of thing, but in a cute sort of way where other people get involved. This kind of start a camping club, and then there's various wholesome adventures, like they meet a dog and pet it, and yeah. But it's basically winter-based outdoors fun with quite a wholesome vibe. I think there's now even a motion picture.
I have to say, like, I'm in Nate's camp. I'm sorry, I'm not much into anime, and I've not heard of a lot of these. But the way you describe them, yeah, I get why you would call them comfort shows, because they do sound so just chill and like nice and cuddly. I don't know.
Yeah, it's just the vibe is just very chilled out. Really, like if you want something relaxing to watch whilst it's cold, I do recommend Laid Back Camp.
Yeah, so I'm actually looking now. I believe we have actually spoke about this before, and also because you just mentioned wintry, obviously it is. If you listen to this episode in the future, it's the winter time in the UK right now. But if you listen to this right now, definitely wrap up warm, and maybe you can watch Laid Back Camp to get some pro tips.
Yeah, absolutely. You might not have to worry about the bears so much, but she zooms around on a scooter a lot, so that's also a thing.
I feel like the bears would still be quite cuddly though. They'd probably like look quite nice. I don't know.
Yeah.
No, definitely. There's a joke there. Some of my gonna say, but no.
I'm being wholesome. Get your mind up the go.
Hey, there's no harm in making a joke about that every now and then, to be honest. But no, that's awesome, man. So going on to my final pick now. Okay, right. So I mentioned Community, I mentioned Parks and Rec. Obviously, this show hasn't been mentioned. What's come on? You guys must know my final show now. Come on.
Is it Brooklyn Nine-Nine?
Yes, my boy. Damn right it is.
Yeah.
Sorry, fuck yeah, I got it. Yeah, no. Brooklyn Nine-Nine is my favorite comfort show of all time. It's my number one comedy show as well, and on my number one comedies because I think it's in my household. You will no doubt hear the intro at some point, anytime in the show, like anytime we're watching it, because I don't know. There was just something about the show where basically it does such a great portrayal of these characters' lives, and also but dealing with some really serious subjects in a really good way, like the whole black people being stopped in the US episode, like how it deals with ramifications of like is a black police officer being stopped by another police officer, and how it deals with that with Terry Crews's character, and then also the he said she said episode like later on in the show, and also when it came to the Black Lives Movement, when that happened, how the show was basically already had most of its scripts written. Then they decided, fuck it, we're just going to throw them out and just start again. And it was dealing with COVID and like this movement going on, and how they decided that was the final season to wrap up on. And it's very interesting how they did that, to be honest, because again, how they even said, how do you do a cop comedy show with the current situation in the US at the moment, or in the world at the moment? And I'm not gonna lie, I think they pulled it off quite well, to be honest. I think how they did it worked quite well. It was only 10 episodes. Like, I was a bit sad it was only 10 episodes because it was I'd love for them to come back to the show in the future and have like a movie, because obviously they have children at this point and maybe a bit grown up and everything. I'm not going to spoil the end of the show for everyone, but it actually has like a really nice wrap up to the show, and I love every character in the show is amazing. Andy Samberg, I feel that like even though he has come from Saturday Night Live, there are moments in the show where he does have some really serious moments. He's a great character, like he's in that film Palm Springs. Again, really natural, calm. We might talk about that film in the future, but he just has this really great presence in the show and this really comedic timing to him. And there's my favorite episode of the show. I will always keep rewatching. It's called The Box. It's literally him, Andrew Brewer, Captain Holt, and Sterling K. Brown in this interrogation room the entire episode. And it just shows the comedic and the acting ability of these three actors within one room with each other. And it's like they call it a very a contained episode, but it is so good, and I always go back to it. It's one of the best things as well. And also, if you know Brooklyn Nine-Nine, one of the cold openings is the Backstreet Boys cold opening. Like oh my god, I totally forgot about that. Everyone knows that opening from TV. Like everyone has stuff in the show which just works out extremely well, in my opinion. I love the fact that Andrew Brewer, Captain Holt, before the show, didn't really know comedy, so he was originally running off his script initially, and then as time went by, he learned to be more free flowing with his comedy acting. So, like how that came about, and I just love how the show went from I'd like you to wear your tie to such a tight, close, tight knit community. I had to try and throw that in there somehow, and they really care about each other. They really do care about each other, and how it's just so funny as well. Like it catches you off guard so many times, and I love that. And also, as a man who loves Die Hard, I do have a big appreciation for Jake Peralta, and yeah, that's the reason why it's my number one show. And also, Michael Schur, again, part of this show. Like, and I think this is like. Out of all the shows, this is one of the best it is the best in my opinion, to be honest.
Yeah, I was also considering A Good Place, which is another show that he did, I believe. Am I right in that?
Yes, yeah.
Yep. So yeah, that guy, obviously very good catalogue. Yeah, you know what, man? I thought your last round was your last pick, and I was thinking to myself, that's weird, he's not picked Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
I mean, yeah. It's like it's very interesting because obviously it just goes to show the power of the show, that because obviously the show was cancelled after 5 seasons on Fox. Within 24 hours, it was picked up by NBC because Lin-Manuel Miranda, Mark Hamill, Guillermo del Toro, all these people like tweeted out, commented, this show needs to come back, and everything. That just goes to show the power of a show. Within 24 hours, another network NBC went, fuck it, we're taking you. Like
The show did change quite a lot when it switched from Fox to NBC. MSNBC.
It added more serious narratives to it. They
Yeah.
they dropped episodes of like serious narratives in there, but when it went over to NBC, it did get more chunky with it narratives. To be honest, like I do agree with that. Like, and also I just love Hitchcock and Scully. Like, you know, if you've seen the flashback episode, like, you know, I'm not gonna lie, I'm more of a Scully stan myself, like for young Scully, but you know, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I do see what you mean, but I don't think it ever moves away in tone so much that it's out of character for the show. And yeah, I just agree that it deals with a lot of interesting issues. One of the things you didn't mention is, I said this a lot this episode, but the representation is really good. Obviously, you have Holt, but I really liked the bi episode they did later in the season as well. That was really well done and great to watch.
Yeah, that, you know, how in the show it actually has a real, like in a lot of TV shows you have like maybe 1 or 2 episodes where I'm bi, then there's a conflict with the family, and then it just goes about with that. But in the show it did carry on for quite a while before, you know, the mother came back and you know she was accepted and everything. Rosie Diaz was accepted, and how like Andrew Burroughs, like Captain Hart, became more of a like a close-knit character for her. And also I was going to say, because I literally read the line here, so basically for its portrayal of LGBTQ representation, LGBTQ people, the series won the 2018 GLAAD Media Award for Outstanding Comedy Series. So the GLAAD is the I'm just finding up the acronym now because I unfortunately don't know that off by heart.
Google's an acronym.
Yes, sorry, apologies, people. I'd rather, you know, be honest about it. But it's the Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation. Yeah, so you know, it won the award for that. And yeah, you are definitely right. It really deals with those topics in a really good way, and I love how you know, and as the narratives go by, it becomes quite naturally part of the show.
Yeah, and just generally, it's I agree. Very fun show. Another example of an upbeat character that works really well. There seems to be a bit of a consistency with our picks with upbeat characters, but I guess that, yeah, you want to see positive characters in comforting shows. But yeah, I agree. It's a great show. It's obviously my kind of comfort is more to do with weird stuff or old British shows, but definitely a good pick.
Yeah, I love the fact that most of my shows Michael Schur has been involved to them to some degree, to be honest. But yeah, that's my final pick. That's my list. Do you guys have any more shows, or I believe we're wrapped up now. So yeah, that's how do we feel about our list? Like you know, good recommendations, or like, you know, anything coming up that you might be interested in, or just shows that you might have not put on there yourselves that you might have done in the future.
We got some stuff to check out. Again, you have to send a list after the episode so I can take a look.
Oh yeah, no, we'll definitely do that for each other, to be honest. Like I obviously next week we're going to be dealing with comfort video games. So I believe, you know,
yeah.
exactly, you know, movies. I think movies is good to end with because like everyone's going to get together at the end of the year. Video games, if you're very geeky like all of us here at NMI, it's good to have with your, you know, your siblings or maybe your parents who are involved in video games. I know, you know, Charles, yourself, your family are involved in that as well. But some people, they just prefer movies. So ending on movies works well as well for us.
I think Fergus mentioned in an episode quite a while ago, a nostalgic video game.
Oh yeah,
about playing
Mario
with your parents or something like that.
Oh yeah, especially Nintendo games. So you'd always get, because Nintendo games tend to be more family orientated party games. Whenever you got a console or a game for Christmas, it would normally ensue in a couple of days of playing something Mario orientated. I think Rabbids Rabbids was the latest one that we had a marathon of, but like Mario Party, my dad still to this day won't stop mentioning Diddy Kong Racing. So yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, looking forward to that topic. Sounds fun, man.
Yeah, it's going to be great. So yeah, no, obviously we'll be doing movies after that, and then we'll be wrapping it up with looking forward to 2020 with our top lists of the year. We might stick it to 5. It may be very difficult to do 5. And I already know myself and Chaz have been discussing this, but I believe we've already agreed what our number 1 film of the year is. To be honest, we won't spoil it for now. It would be very interesting when we talk about that. But yeah, so people, that is the end of the show. So if you've got any questions, queries, or compliments, or if you want to email in or you know, at us with any of your specific favorite comfort shows that you love to watch, email us at nmipodcast@outlook.com. That's nmipodcast@outlook.com. That'll be linked in our socials as well. It'll also be linked on our Spotify and iTunes and everything, so you can click on there. Or if you want to find us on socials, search at NMIcast on Twitter and Instagram. If you go to Linktree, we're on there as well. We're on all your favorite listening platforms. Obviously, we're trying to make it there for you. Again, next week we're doing comfort video games. It's going to be very interesting, to be honest, that one, because it's different to favorite video games, because like favorite video games you go back to every now and then. Comfort video games are games you usually go back to more often than favorite video games, which I kind of find, to be honest. So yeah, that'll be very interesting to do. But I want to thank Chaz and Fergus for joining me again today.
Thanks for having me once again.
Good to be here.
Yes, right. That is it, people. You stay safe. And remember, wrap up warm in this cold weather and stay safe out there. And we will see you next time. See you later, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.